At that moment, he pulled out a plastic bag he had hidden. He tried to restrain her hands. Then he placed the plastic bag over her head. He took out strong adhesive tape, the kind used to seal boxes, and began wrapping it tightly around her head, over the plastic bag, again and again. Iman was wearing a scarf. He wrapped it around her neck, intending to strangle her. He tied it tightly. Then he pushed part of the scarf from behind the plastic bag into her mouth and wrapped the tape over it once more. Her hands were bound, his body pressed against hers, pinning her down, leaving her unable to move. Iman tried to breathe. She couldn't. She struggled to free her hands. Each time she tried, he struck her violently in the stomach. Her condition worsened. The suffocation intensified until the oxygen was cut off and her life ended. When he was certain she was dead, he began digging near the car. The sand was thick, so he dug a shallow grave, just deep enough to place the body inside and cover it with sand. He dragged her body out of the car, placed it into the pit, and buried it. No one saw him. No one knew he had met her. She had told no one, and he buried her unseen. But God was watching. And to ruin his plan, something happened, something he never expected. As soon as he got back into the car and drove about 20 meters away from the grave, the vehicle sank into the sand. It was stuck. He tried to move it. He tried again, but the car would not budge. It remained trapped in the ground, as if God himself had stopped him to expose what he had done. He thought about calling for help, but fear stopped him. The body was close. He asked himself, what am I going to do? So he went back to the body. He realized he had no choice. He had to move her away from the car. He pulled the body out again, carried it, walked a long distance through the sand. Then he dug another spot and buried her once more. He returned to the car and tried again to free it, but it didn't move. After several failed attempts, he had no option left. He called for help. He contacted friends and acquaintances. Come quickly, he said. I'm stuck in this area. They arrived at the location, surprised by where he was, surprised by the situation of the car. Together they helped him until they finally managed to pull the vehicle out of the sand. Among the friends who arrived was a man named Mohammed. He noticed something strange about Tawfiq. Tawfiq was wiping blood from his head. Blood was clearly visible in his hair, mixed with sand, scratches on his skin, exhausted, disheveled. Mohammed looked at him and asked, Tawfiq, what happened to you? Why are you here? And why this car? I've never seen you go to desert areas before, and I've never seen you in a condition like this. Tawfiq answered him, the car got stuck. I exhausted myself digging. That's why I look like this. Mohammed said nothing. After they helped him, Tawfiq left the area and went with Mohammed to his home. He told him, I can't go back to my family looking like this. Mohammed gave him clean clothes. Tawfiq changed. He showered, cleaned himself, then he left. Later, he washed the car and returned it to the rental office. No one knew what had happened. Meanwhile, Iman's family was waiting for her to return, as usual. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3. Night fell. Her mother grew worried. So did her father and her brother. They called her phone again and again. It was switched off. They called her co-workers. They were told she was at work. She left during her break. She was supposed to return in half an hour, but she never did. They contacted everyone connected to Iman, near or far. No one was left uncalled. When they reached Tawfiq, they expected a certain reaction. But what happened was completely different. He was calm. He joined them in the search. He moved with them from place to place, pretending he knew nothing. He insisted that the dispute between him and Iman was over, that they were just neighbors from the same country, with no hostility between them. When a search team was formed, Tawfiq was there every time. He went with them to hospitals, to public places, even back to the mall itself. They searched everything carefully, the shops, the supermarket, the restrooms, every possible corner. They spoke to employees. Some suggested she might have fainted, or collapsed somewhere, or suffered a sudden medical emergency. At first, the greatest fear was that she had been harmed and that Tawfiq might be involved. But his constant presence with them slowly pushed those suspicions aside. Search continued all day with no results. The next day, after more than 24 hours had passed since her disappearance, the authorities were officially notified. The case was strange. She disappeared during work hours, not on her way to work and not on her way home. That ruled out a traffic accident. She had left her workplace and no one knew where she went. Investigators began questioning her co-workers. Did she have enemies? Was she facing any problems? They answered, no, she had no enemies. But she was dealing with an issue, though we don't believe it directly caused her disappearance. When asked what that issue was, they explained she had been engaged, and the engagement was recently broken off. They added that the former fiancé had been trying for some time to contact her and get back together, but she had refused. That's when the question was asked, and who is this person? They replied, his name is Taufik. Taufik was summoned. He said calmly, I've been searching with them the whole time. There are no problems between me and her. He was told, that's fine. Just a quick questioning. He was brought in for an initial interrogation. He was asked first, where do you work? He answered, I work at a concrete company. Then he was asked directly, where were you at the time of the girl's disappearance? He replied, I was with my friends. They asked him, who are these friends? He mentioned several names and emphasized that one of them was his closest friend. He said, I was at his house that day. Then he added, his name is Mohammed. Later, Mohammed was summoned. From the very first moment, it was clear that he was calm, cooperative, and had a good reputation. He was told, Mohammed, we've called you because we're investigating the disappearance of a young woman. You are close to Taufik and you know his situation. Mohammed said, I know that Taufik was engaged. The engagement was broken off. He had been trying to get back to her, and there were problems between them. He was asked again to confirm, is it true that you were together in the desert? In the Al-Ain desert? He answered, yes, that's correct. He continued, he called us around 7 in the evening. He was stuck in the sand, so we went to help him. He added, after we got the car out, I asked him how he was. He seemed a bit nervous. I asked him, why are you here? He said, I came to relax, to watch people driving up the dunes, just to enjoy myself. By the end of the questioning, Mohammed's statement confirmed one thing clearly. Taufik was in the desert at that exact time. Mohammed left. But a short while later, he returned to the officer and said, I have something I need to say, something that might help you in this case. The officer replied, go ahead. Mohammed said, to be honest, this was the time Taufik had ever gone to places like that. Rough terrain, sand dunes, mountains, the desert in general. I was genuinely surprised. When he came to my house, I gave him some of my clothes and he took his with him. I also noticed something else. He had a wound on his head. There was visible blood in his hair from the back. I found that strange, so I asked him about it. He told me that while digging, he hit his head under the car's tire. But honestly, his explanation didn't convince me. That's why I felt I should report this to you. The officer replied, all right, Mohammed, thank you. You've been very helpful. Then they brought Taufik in. The officer said to him, Taufik, you were in the desert at that time. Your car got stuck and you called your friends for help. Is that correct? Taufik answered, yes. The officer asked, why did you go there alone? He replied, I went to relax a bit, to change the atmosphere. The officer continued, all right. Since when do you go to places like this? Do you know how to drive in the desert? How to deal with sand and rough terrain? Taufik said, for a long time. The officer looked at him and said, that's not true. Your friend, who has known you for years, confirmed that this was your first time going to such places, and that you do not have real experience driving in the desert. The car you rented today, what were you doing with it in the desert? Speak clearly. You cannot continue responding like this. You claim you went there to relax and have fun, but that explanation makes no sense at all. If you had gone with friends who have experience in desert driving, your story might have been believable. But for someone with no real experience to rent a vehicle and head alone into areas full of deep sand and dunes, that is completely unreasonable. A car can get stuck at any moment, so why would you go to such places? This simply does not add up. Furthermore, At that exact time, you were officially scheduled to be at work at the concrete company. You were absent. We contacted your employer and they confirmed that you did not show up. Does it make sense for someone to skip work just because he decided to go into the desert for entertainment? Tell us the truth. What were you really doing there? And where did you take Iman? Your statements are not convincing. But in the end, everything will be revealed. All we need is one thing, one clear, tangible piece of evidence that proves your guilt. Investigators began analyzing the technical evidence. Phone network records showed activity on Tawfiq's phone at the exact time Iman left her workplace. Iman's phone records were examined as well. It was confirmed that a call had occurred between the two phones. However, the details of incoming and outgoing numbers had been deleted from Tawfiq's device. But the most critical development came from the cell tower data. Both phones were connecting to the same cell towers on the same frequency at the same time. This confirmed to investigators that the two phones were together in the same location. Even as the signal moved deeper into the desert, both phones remained aligned within the same geographic point. At that moment, investigators were certain Iman had been with Tawfiq when he drove into the desert. Despite this, Tawfiq continued to deny everything. He remained silent. Mohammed was summoned for questioning. They asked him, "Mohammed, where is the place where Tawfiq's car got stuck? The location you went to?" He provided them with a specific location and asked to accompany them and guide them there. However, Tawfiq, fortunately for him, had anticipated this earlier and had moved the girl's burial site to a more distant location. The teams searched the area Mohammed had pointed out, but they found nothing. Nevertheless, the investigators' conviction did not waver. All indications confirmed that Tawfiq had been with Iman until the very last moment. Tawfiq was brought back to the site once again. They confronted him directly. "Talk. Where did you bury the girl? You were with her in the desert. All the evidence is against you. Where did you bury her?" The question was repeated over and over. The pressure increased and the noose tightened. Then, after a long silence, Tawfiq raised his head and said in a low voice, "There," pointing with his finger. The body of the unfortunate girl was then recovered. She was still wearing her clothes, with the zipper or belt of her pants undone. A plastic bag had been placed over her head. She was wrapped in a headscarf and secured with adhesive tape. The girl was already deceased, and the discoloration of the body clearly indicated that several hours had passed since her death, especially given the high temperature, which had caused the body to begin swelling. The body was subsequently transferred to the forensic department. During the interrogation, Tawfiq began to confess and recounted all the details. He stated that he loved her deeply and could not imagine living without her. He admitted that he attempted to assault her honor, but she resisted and struck him on the head with a perfume bottle. He added that the wound observed on her head resulted from that struggle, along with additional injuries and bruises on his left and right shoulders. Following these confessions, he was referred to the public prosecution. The court ultimately sentenced him to death for murder. And you, the listeners, what is your opinion of the court's ruling and of the girl? Who do you believe bears the responsibility? I look forward to reading your answers in the comments.